Riverside Plaza, home to Boeing Corporation, and it was designed by Perkins and Will. Now this consists of a taller 36-story structure and a lower 13-story structure. It's this lower structure that's the most interesting though, because not only does that stand above the railroad tracks, but it also stands above the switching tracks to the railroad. The trains do switch tracks right underneath. Because of this, they couldn't build this building, this part of the building like they built the rest of the building. They actually had to hang it from a series of X-shaped trusses that suspend this lower structure from the building's foundation. So as we pass from under this bridge, if you look up and back, you will see that system of X-shaped trusses up there. Now on your right, another Art Deco building. This is 2 North Riverside Plaza, designed by Holabird and Root. And it was actually the first building ever to be constructed on those railroad air rights. To do this, they simply cantilevered the plaza part right over those tracks. Now the next 4 buildings on your right are the 4 Gateway Center buildings. They are Gateway 1, 2, 3, and 4. All of them were designed by Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. And if you don't believe me, look for yourself. They do all stand right above those railroad tracks. You can see the trains right underneath Gateway 1 here. Now Gateway 1 and 2 are these first 2 black buildings. And they are 2 black steel and glass office buildings. And being office buildings that stand above railroad tracks, you might imagine that Gateway 1 and 2 are a little bit hard to work in. That's actually not the case. The buildings are 100% shock and soundproof. And they actually filter the fumes from the railroad up through themselves and out and over the river. So really easy to work in, as it turns out. Gateway 1 and 2 look a little bit like that Mace Vanderohe building we saw a little bit earlier. That is because they were designed by students of his that were working with Skidmore, Owings & Merrill at the time. Now on your right, this white building with the dark windows is a 35-story office tower. This is Gateway 3. And Gateway 3 is made up of precast panels. Those are those panels that you see on the front. They were actually made off-site, brought on-site, and they were the very last things that fixed the surface of the building. This is the way you get a building like this to actually look like it's made of a different material than it's made of inside. Precast panels. Now coming up on your right is the last and largest of the Gateway Center buildings, Gateway 4. Gateway 4 was designed by James DiStefano. He was the head architect and he was working with Skidmore, Owings & Merrill at the time, but he has since gone on to start his own architectural firm, James DiStefano and Partners. We did see the residences at River Bend that firm designed a little bit earlier. And Mr. DiStefano was actually criticized for the design of Gateway 4 because people said he didn't decorate it with anything. But he said, yes, I did. I decorated it with the buildings all around it. As you can see, they are reflected in its surface. This is known as the kaleidoscope effect. Now on your right, this large beige building here is the former main Chicago Post Office. It's Art Deco and it was designed by Graham Anderson Probst and White. Now this building was completed in 1933 and in that year it was the 3rd largest post office in the world. Chicago needed a post office so large because we were the center of catalog sales and shipping for not only Montgomery Ward, but also Marshall Fields. So a lot of catalog items were shipped out of this post office. So we needed a very large one. Now this is the former main Chicago post office. The post office did move because multi-story buildings are no longer thought to be efficient for the processing of mail. So they did move, leaving this building vacant, but recently it was used in the filming of the Dark Knight movie. So this was the police station in that movie, and the rooftop was the scene for a lot of the fights between Batman and Two-Face. After I pass from under this next bridge, if you look to your right, you'll see where the post office moved to. They did not have to go far, just right next door. So this building coming up on your right is the new U.S. Post Office Processing Center in the city of Chicago. And it's actually one of the most automated facilities in the United States. It consists of 3 processing pavilions, that's processing, administration, and service. It also has a 1,200 car garage and a very large lobby clad in marble and French glass reliefs. Now the reason the architect designed a lobby so large, according to him, was that it should be leased out for such things as weddings and bat mitzvahs. And we in Delaware were wondering who has ever gotten married in a post office. We were wondering who would get married in a post office. And apparently Tom wants to get married in a post office. No, the joke that we have here is that maybe mail order brides get married there. So now we're in the South Loop area. What that means is that we're south of the Loop. What the Loop is an actual loop that's made in the track of our elevated trains, our L trains. And if someone says that they're in the Loop area, it means they're in the general area of that loop in the track of the L train. So we're south of that, hence the South Loop. Chicago gets very creative with the names of our neighborhoods. In front of us and to your left, this poured concrete structure that you see here is River City, designed by Bertrand Goldberg. He was that same architect who gave us those Marina City towers we saw a little bit earlier. And if you'll remember, he thought that since there were no right angles in nature, there should also be none in architecture. Now, originally, River City was actually supposed to be 4 structures that snaked down the Chicago River. But due to zoning laws, they only let Bertrand Goldberg build this one. However, River City in and of itself is a fantastic structure. It does have docking for up to 70 boats, as well as an indoor greenhouse area. Now over to your right, if you look past this shopping center on the right of it, you will see a building with 3 brown walls and 1 orange wall facing north. It's pretty far back there, but that does mark the spot where the Great Chicago Fire started. The orange wall pays tribute to where Mrs. O'Leary's barn once stood. Now, since we do love irony here in the city of Chicago, that is the Chicago Fire Training Academy. In a moment, we will be turning around. Once we do, in front of us will be a tall black building with 2 white antennae. This is actually the tallest building in Chicago, the tallest building in America, and the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. It stands at 1,454 feet, or 110 stories tall, and it is the Willis Tower. Now, originally this building was called the Sears Tower. However, an insurance group out of London rented about 3%